Hello crafty friends and welcome to my channel. I'm Adrienne Bosey of Alice Scraps Wonderland. Today I'm sharing a gorgeous Reneabouquets project with you that is all about the layering process. I'm a big fan of layering chipboard, paper flowers, and so much more into seemingly precarious piles. I often get asked just how I do it, especially with open elements such as frames. And you are in luck because today's video will give you my tips for layering multiple frames over each other in which they are slightly offset and have layers of paper flowers in between them. I'll be using one of my favorite chipboard frame sets from Reneabouquets for this layering tutorial, the lilac heart frames. I've used the purple and aqua version of these frame sets, but today we are using some stunning blue ones. If you want to recreate this same project, I have all of the supplies linked in my blog post for this project, which you can find listed in the description box below. I love a good monochromatic project, so after adding texture through a stencil to this 8x10 inch canvas, I spritzed it with several different Tim Holtz Distress Spray stains, oxide sprays, and a mica stain. When creating a distress background, the key is to slowly build your layers up, drying in between each layer. I just love the magic that happens when these sprays react with water. I start working on preparing and altering some of my other embellishments so everything is ready to go when I start gluing things on my canvas. I add some water to prepare a watercolor I want to use later, then paint some molds with white gesso. While the gesso dries, I paint the Reneabouquets Medium Elegant Accents chipboard with some sparkly blue acrylic paint. I give these 2 layers of paint to really amp up the shine. Then I add a bit of the watercolor to the molds. I let it seep into the recesses and if needed, wipe any excess off of the raised areas to bring back the highlights. The painted chipboard pieces get dabbed with embossing ink and then covered in distress embossing glaze in Lost Shadow. This light gray is translucent with a hint of color, making these sparkly chipboard pieces glossy. I trimmed some Reneabouquets lovely drop lace to fit the canvas. Don't worry about gluing this down, it will get tacked down when you add paper flowers and other elements over the top of it with heavy body gel. Now that most of my elements are ready, let's talk about how you can layer open elements like frames in an ethereal way as if they are floating over your canvas. The first tip is to dry fit your elements before gluing them down. This simply means placing things on your canvas without adhesive to figure out how you want to arrange your elements. Once you are happy with the placement of your elements, begin to glue them down with heavy body gel. The first layer of paper flowers is the foundation of your embellishment clusters, so we want this to be as stable as possible. And that leads me into the second tip, which is supporting both sides of your first frame with paper flowers. You can see that I've placed flowers on the canvas so that they support the upper left of the heart frame and the left side of the heart frame. You want these 2 supports to be opposite of one another in order to provide the most support possible. My third tip is to make sure that your first frame is as level as possible because not all paper flowers are the same height. You may need to pop some of the shorter ones up with some foam adhesive or pieces of cardboard. I like to use boxes that my supplies come in. It's a great way to repurpose some of them. Now, let's talk about offsetting the next chipboard frame. This frame is smaller and won't have very many additional layers on it, so we are going to support it with only a few flowers that hold the frame on opposite edges, just like the last one. The only difference here is that these flowers need to be adhered to the lower frame, so dry fitting is even more important. So my fourth and final tip is that any additional layers you add over the offset top frame need to be supported by the flowers underneath rather than by the frame itself. You can see that I'm building up my layer of flowers through the center of the top frame. The last flower I add is a nice large one that will hold one of the bigger Reneabouquets butterflies, but I like to add those near the end, so more on that in a minute. I decided to die cut some leaves to add to this project as I felt it needed just a little more filling in with some other elements. I used one of my favorite dies from Spellbinders, cutting it from some blue patterned paper from Prima Marketing. I give the leaves a gentle shape and tuck them in among the flowers and other embellishments. Because I use heavy bodied gel, I still have plenty of work time left. There were a few where I used some additional liquid adhesive to help keep them in place better. I also cut up some of the same lovely drop lace and add bits of it in among the flowers. This adds just a bit more texture to your layers. Once I'm happy with the layers of embellishments, I start to add the finishing touches. First up is applying glossy accents to the edges of the flowers and sprinkling on Reneabouquets Diamond Shard glitter glass. I always tap off the excess and put it back into my jar for the next project. I prep a couple of butterflies, but before I glue them down, I wanted to tone down the green and yellow in this project from the flowers. I dry brushed on a bit of white gesso to these areas to make the project more cohesive. Then I glue on several butterflies. I use some additional foam adhesive to help pop one up so it angled just right over the other elements. Another finishing touch is adding some gems. These iridescent ones remind me of water droplets, and I can't help but add a ton of them. The last element is adding a few of these delicate butterfly kisses to the canvas after giving the wings a slight bend. And that's it for this project. I hope that you enjoyed this layering tutorial. Don't forget to like this video and to subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Until next time, happy crafting!